Hi, I'm Rob Sanchez, and I'm here with Meredith Oppenheim from Vitality Society. And Meredith, I'd like to have you just kind of dive in and tell us a little bit about yourself and about Vitality Society.
Absolutely, Rob. Thank you so much for having me. This is my 30th year working with older people. I've been on a mission for so long to keep older people connected and well. And I'm proud to say for the last few years, since right before COVID, I've been leading and launching a community for predominantly women 60 and older to remain at their very best. And we accomplished that with programming led by top tier experts in their fields, curated specifically for those that we serve. And the idea is really how do we get people to show up and what is valuable to them? So, in our community that we have built, our members who subscribe show up 5 hours a week to participate in our programming. And because of the commitment they've made, they're thriving. And we're so excited to scale the business so we can impact the lives of so many more people in that way.
So when you're talking about what they get out of what you've built in those 5 hours, what does that look like?
Absolutely. So, our core product is live on Zoom fitness, wellness, and enrichment programming. And they are members who are subscribers, participate in those programs as often as they wish and want. We have about 20 live classes each week, and we tailor it down to that number because it's exclusively designed in a way for those who really need and can benefit from what we offer to get what they need. So, whether it be strengthening or cardio or balance, there is something really for everybody and everybody. So, our members really participate and engage very often. We've become part of their daily lives, part of their daily routine. I often equate it to appointment style television watching. When I was young, I would come home after school and watch my favorite TV show before dinner after I did my homework. In the same spirit, our members know that maybe one of their favorite classes is at 2 o'clock on, let's just say, Tuesday, and they could design their lives. And many of them lead very busy lives. A lot of them are still working, a lot of them are volunteering. So we're just part of their day, and we give them the energy and vitality that they need so that they could more fully engage and benefit and enjoy everything else that they're doing in their lives.
Yeah. Now, when you design the courses that you're offering, are you pulling information in from other people? Are you working with experts? Like, how do you actually put together the set of classes when you're thinking it that way?
It's a great question. So we often think about like what do people need head to toe. So we have a whole program, word games on Friday with a large community of women. I'd say the people that participate, most of them have an advanced degree, if not multiple advanced degrees. So we think about those who are very intellectually curious and very accomplished. We have to think about having most sophisticated programming, and that really comes with having leaders in their fields participate and engage with
Mhm.
us and lead our members. So we really think about how do we supply and provide content that's going to engage and interest those that are already the most interesting and exciting people. We also think about on the other end of the spectrum, we have many members that come on and think about, well, how can I really gain stability and strength that I perhaps have lost or haven't really developed as much as I would like. And the reality is, we think about our programming on that end of the spectrum, like in 30-minute increments. So, our seated series, our 30-minute classes, allows people who perhaps haven't participated or engaged in fitness and wellness programming to be able to engage with us and enjoy what we do. And the idea is to meet our members where they're at, to have a wide range of programming. We call it different intensity levels. So we have women who show up Monday morning at 9:15 to do our bar class. And then we have many other members that are just enjoying our 30-minute seated programming series, which has been working extremely well and has gotten them moving in ways that they never did and now thriving in ways that they had hoped.
Yeah. Do you find that the actual scheduling of a live is more effective in having people engage versus like having people do it on their own or like try and fit it into their schedule and watch a re-recorded
It's a great question. So, Rob, prior to launching Vitality Society, I'd worked in the industry of senior housing for 2 decades. And what we saw in those communities when people live there, they benefit most from camaraderie and they enjoy that the most.
Mm-hmm.
And when I did about 2 years of research leading up to launching this business, because I'm a student of this and learning every day from our members, so I really listen closely and carefully. And the reality is that people really needed and wanted to remain connected. So we saw in the focus groups that we did before COVID that people just enjoyed coming to other people's living rooms and having a chance to get together. And so that spirit of connection really is at the core of everything we do. So our members are encouraged to come on to Zooms 10 to 15 minutes early, stay 10 to 15 minutes late. The idea is to build community and camaraderie around affinity. So we have a vibrant group of artists that have all shared an interest in that pastime, some of them professionally, as a hobby, some of them later in life, some of them haven't yet cultivated it truly just yet. And so the idea is that when you build community around affinity, you get a very exciting dynamic where people want to be together, they want to exchange ideas, and they want to grow as an organization collectively. So we constantly have to think about programming that allows them to go from where they are to even get better and bigger in their thinking.
Yeah. That's fascinating that like that community connection is part of it. And is that one of the reasons why you're choosing almost like a Zoom format for the classes so that you get that engagement back and forth? Or what was your thinking around the technology delivery side?
Yeah, so interesting. When I started to build the platform, taking the substantial research that I had done, I distilled it down to 8 principles of what people really needed and wanted. And we start with B. They're each 2-letter words, and it was B, like be the best version of yourself, right? Like what can you do to improve your vitality even more so? And so for us, for people to be the best versions of themselves, we needed them to engage and feel comfortable doing so. I always intended to serve a national audience, and I had felt that doing something virtually, this is again when we built it in the fall of 2019, I felt that if we can use a platform where people could foster those connections, where geography and any kind of limitations that people had from terms of transportation weren't obstacles, how can we use the technology out there to make it an opportunity? But in the spirit of keeping people at their best, we couldn't frustrate them and annoy them with the platform. So we felt that Zoom was easy. But at the time when I launched the business, my daughter, who's now 12, was 9. And I remember the first class I offered, she came in and she's like, Mama, you're sitting in front of a black screen. What are you doing? And I'm like, this is Zoom. I'm waiting for people to come on. And then she left because she wasn't interested. And then 10 minutes later, she came back again and she's like, Mama, still nobody's here. What are you doing? What are you waiting for? And I said, you know what, Brielle? You can't give up that easily or quickly. You've got to try hard. And she didn't know what Zoom was. We all didn't know what Zoom was. But once COVID hit and the holidays came in terms of Passover and Easter, most people had helped a neighbor or a family member get on Zoom. And so her school was now on Zoom. So she was very familiar with what it was. And older people were able to comfortably engage. So for us, we keep the technology simple. We use a lot of email-based communications. We stay very connected with our members through frequent, redundant connections over email. And this allowed them to know how and when things happen, and people become a creature of habit, right? Just like they come to our classes habitually, they know what they need to do. And now it's really comfortable and easy, and it has opened up a world of opportunity on our platform and others for them.
So now as you're starting to scale, what might change? Like what do you see coming? Because it's always like there's a size where it breaks, right? And then you have to rethink it.
Yeah, it's interesting because I really pour my heart and soul into the business of serving older people. When, I started when I was in high school, I wanted my grandparents to live forever. I loved them so much and I wanted them to be part of my life as long as they could be. And so this idea of never losing sight of why I do what I do, right? To have the biggest impact on people. And with impact comes volume, right? We've got to get there with a certain degree of volume and a certain degree of velocity. And I went to Harvard for my MBA, and we trained for these moments, right? For 2 years to think about how to grow companies and successfully. But quite frankly, I also think about our success of scaling is never to lose that connection that people feel like they're part of a warm and wonderful community. So our vision for the company is to align with companies that already have scale, because what we've done is to get our subscribers to show up on average 5 hours a week, and they renew their subscriptions close to 100% of the time, month over month. So you can imagine, Rob, many companies out there, whether it be retailers or manufacturers of
They
clothing,
want that.
right? If you can get someone to show up to your local supermarket, let's call, on average 5 hours a week virtually or actually, you can think about the billions of dollars of sales that could be generated by bringing an older population to a marketplace virtually or actually, and get them to come back 5 hours a week and get them to renew 100% of the time. It's very powerful. And so this idea of Vitality Society, of being a community builder and a content creator to do this for brands, it's brilliant in terms of what companies can do, because the older population is one that's so overlooked and underserved. I would love to be part of that and be a catalyst for them to successfully serve this population.
That's great. Yeah. It's interesting how I feel like coming from fashion and that background, there's just these massive pockets of incredible people who are completely not served. And that's just like over and over again. And I think it's a remnant of old technologies, old broadcast technologies, to a degree. So it's interesting to see you breaking that down by using um, this connective tool. Are you thinking about like, how do I stretch the boundaries of what's possible on it? Are you looking at like cooking courses and things like that? Or are you just like more of the same? Like what occurs to you as possible, I guess?
Yeah, so there's two areas that are really exciting to me. So I think about the healthcare business, and it truly is a business, right? I mean,
Yeah.
there's the healthcare system is set up waiting for people to get sick. And once people do get sick, it's not so easy to get money out of the system to cover the illnesses that you have. So where we come in, and my vision for the company and what we can do for brands, is let's start the relationship earlier. How about if we focus healthcare on keeping people well in a preventative way? So I think when I believe what is the potential of the platform and the opportunity that I see is like shifting that mindset of healthcare to a preventative model, right? It is truly, as a country, what we need is to keep the older population well, because there is such a scarcity of resources, whether it be caregivers, both familial as well as commercial opportunities that exist, as well as the funds that are in Medicare and Medicaid are so scarce. So as a nation, we've got to keep this older population well. And it's truly what this older population wants. When I started working with older people, I was in high school, like I said, and it was a novelty to eat well, right? This was a generation of the Depression that was just happy to have food on their tables, right? This is a generation of boomers. They want something different than has ever been available to them before, and any of us before, right? And so what we see is a tremendous commitment and investment that older people are willing to make. So as a nation, as a corporation, we've got to get on the front end of this and help people stay well. I've been a caregiver to both of my parents. My father was very sick, and I fought like hell to save his life. And, I saw the dire consequences of that on my mom's mental health as a caregiver, and the toll it took on him physically and mentally as well. This is not what people want. We've got to think about extending the lifespan. How do you live a long but great life? Think of Queen Elizabeth, right? I mean, I think a few days before she passed away peacefully, these meetings, and nothing was slowing down and stopping her. And we need to think about longevity like that and get on the
Pastel
front.
pantsuits. I think that's
And the pan, right, right.
yeah.
And I think that for us is one direction, right? So to get close to healthcare and reform healthcare in this preventative based model and start building the relationship early and well. And then on the other piece of this is I really do believe that there are products and services out there that serve older people, but that could be advantageous to so many people.
Hmm.
So when I sat on the New York City Department for Aging Board, and I also sat on Mayor Bloomberg's Age Friendly Commission. What we discovered was what was good for older people was actually good for everybody,
Yeah.
right? The idea of longer times to walk across an intersection or benches at a bus stop. These and cuts so people could get over the curbs, street to street in an urban environment. These adaptations were universally desirable. So I feel like if we can think about how to create products and services that are not just good for older people, but good for so many people, that's really where I think the market potential explodes.
Yeah. Have you partnered with people out of the neurodiversity community at all? I feel like there's a lot of shared learnings from that, and also like one of the things I think would be interesting is the shift in how we're treating hearing care,
Yeah.
which has been like that was a shift recently where now you can buy hearing aids over the counter
Yes.
for the first
Much
time,
more accessible.
and that's
Mhm.
going to have a huge impact
And the
on your
designs are really
yeah.
evolving, right? So it
Well,
doesn't
and they didn't
stigmatize it.
evolve only because of that prohibition, right? Like
Right.
opening it up is going to, yeah, massive impact.
Massive impact. And think about children and older people, right? There's a stigma to have to wear a hearing aid. And
Yeah,
I know with my grandmothers, like they just never wore them. They were uncomfortable. They didn't look good. It was embarrassing. And therefore, they didn't benefit from it. But when
yeah,
you're an older person, if you're not hearing properly, you're disconnecting more and more. And it's very natural through an aging process that your social circle gets smaller and smaller. Who you see, what you do is less and over
yeah,
time. And so lose your hearing, that becomes exacerbated earlier and it really isolates people further. And that's
yeah. And that
partially
causes
why
a
we
decline
exist.
in a lot of health and vitality. So,
Absolutely. And
yeah,
this social isolation, as you've read and we all know, is the equivalent of smoking multiple packs of cigarettes a day. It's deadly, right? And that's what we see. Like we have had many members who've called us a lifesaver and a lifeline, not even just through COVID. I mean, that goes without saying, but since COVID, right? It's not so
yeah,
easy later in life if your spouse passes away or your friends move away or your family is busy to just get lost, and we help find our members and give them something to be part of that they enjoy.
yeah. That's really good. So beyond the healthcare aspect and like partnering with brands and so on, what else are you thinking about that can impact this community and also like how do you bring what you're learning here back to other people? I think a lot about how there's some older healthcare systems where we cut off aid, like in Cuba. They
Yeah.
focused a lot on preventative care because they didn't have facilities because we cut off aid and we cut off access to medical devices. So when you start looking at that, like there's a lot we can learn from societies like that. Are you thinking about going out and pulling in knowledge and kind of expanding the base of what you're looking at? How do you do that inside of a model
Yeah.
like yours?
It's interesting. I mean, I think we've, to a certain extent, we've got to take our show on the road, right? I
Mhm.
have supplemented our virtual programming with programming in various cities where we have concentrations of members, and those events have been phenomenal, Rob. I mean, what we do virtually is
Yeah.
very special, and people have found friendships, and I have identified communities of people that have shared interests. There is no substitution for doing this live. And when they meet people live, I love seeing the pictures and hearing the stories. It's remarkable. I mean, I've traveled this country and met many of our coaches and many of our members that I too only knew virtually. So it's very powerful for us. And I knew going into this from the research that I'd done that everything hinged on health, of course, right? Provided I feel well until I don't feel well, because I feel well, everything hinged on health. But what everybody wanted and needed to do most of and thought they'd enjoy more of, which is travel.
Hmm.
So for us, it's like, how do we really help people get out there? So we nurture relationships and form them online, but then we give people opportunities offline. And so
Yeah.
travel is an area of great interest to our members. They're traveling lots. They come home and they said, I got COVID, but it was so worth it. It was so great to be out and about and do what I love and where I hadn't been able to go in the last few years. So I
Yeah.
think travel is a big piece of this and how we extend what we do beyond the virtual realm, supplementing what we do virtually and do things actually. So I think in our direction where we're headed, the partnerships and opportunities are really vast. But travel is at the top of the list because I know it's what our members love to do. We do a virtual travel program in December. We travel all over the world and we don't tell anybody where we're going, and we show up and they have to guess which city we're in. And our members really love that. This is a sense of adventure. And I have to tell you, quite frankly, it's actually good for your health too.
Yeah.
There's a lot of studies that have been done that going places, exposing yourself to different cultures and communities is excellent for your brain and great for your physical body. And we take that seriously and love to be part of that for our members.
Yeah. Are you thinking of doing like Peloton style, like you get on a Stairmaster or something and climb Machu Picchu, like that sort of thing,
Oh.
or are you?
Oh, like a
Yeah.
virtual version? I don't
Yeah.
know. My family just came back. We went to a few of the national parks out west, and
Mhm.
we went at the end of August in New York. Our kids start a little bit later, so I get to travel a little bit later than most families. And
Yeah.
I'm always fascinated because we always go the same last 2 weeks of August, and wherever we go, whether it's Alaska before the pandemic or Zion and Bryce. Last few weeks, it's in August this year, it's like buses and buses of older people are coming off, and
Yeah.
I always think to myself, like, I think it's an extension, right? I think people need to train with us, right? Virtually. I think there's a real powerful piece of this that we've really invested in, which is the best in class coaches from all over the world teach our members. So it doesn't matter where they live. The people who are
Yeah.
coming, they can get this top tier talent right in their homes at their convenience. They could watch it recorded if they're not able to do it live, but if they're live, that's lovely. They can interact with our experts and our members. But the idea is like training for these trips, because I know at Zion, like you get off the bus and it's like all these steps and these inclines, and that hiking is really hot and vigorous.
Yeah.
There's this notion of, can we help our members be at their best? So not only do they have the best time while they're there, but they feel great about going and going more.
Yeah. That's interesting. You could almost make it like a curriculum for a specific thing.
Exactly.
I was thinking about how different activities require different muscle groups, which I'm learning the hard way as I work on the house that I'm restoring right now. Um,
It's
and
right.
yeah, and it's like, okay, well, this one I haven't used that muscle set for 30
Very
years.
long
So,
time. I know I
um,
try to get like 10,000 steps in at least 5 days a week. And
yeah,
it's been great for me. I don't have the luxury all the time to take our classes, but at the beginning, I took a lot of our classes and I love them. They're really special. And,
hmm,
listen, I see on my Facebook all the time, are in my late 40s, but I have lots of friends who are trying to get their moms and dads to get up and go, like, how do we get this generation to move and do and feel good? Because it's devastating to read these postings. My mom has Parkinson's, these degenerative diseases, or my
yeah,
parents passed away and now I'm alone. Like, we're at this place where they can take control and ownership, and let's see what we can do in these beautiful, wonderful decades of life that are ahead of them. How do you improve that health span so you're living longer and living better? It's such a benefit to have these intergenerational relationships in one family. And how do you preserve that as long as you can? That's what got me started. I wanted my grandparents there for
yeah,
everything.
yeah. That's really good. I think of my parents are now in the older age group, and it's like they got in a car accident. I had to go back and help them recover, and recovery times are longer, and you start to like really appreciate that. But then also, like, what I've loved is watching them care for their friends. So they've got a friend who has Parkinson's and has had it since he was in his like late 40s, and he has not slowed down. And so sometimes it's like, where is he? Well, He's out in a pasture. He runs a landscaping business. He's out in a pasture somewhere. He's probably fallen down. We're going to go find him. We'll be right back, you know? So, so
Wow.
you think about like that level of activity, and yeah, how do you help people who aren't like that get there? And then how do you support the people who are there? Do you do
And
anything
also, I
around,
will.
oh, go
Oh, I'm
ahead.
sorry.
Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I mean, first of all, to have a adult child capable and able to come and be with your parents and help them is so wonderful and powerful, right? I mean, we are the linchpin in this caregiver economy as adult children. We need to be there. I know I lived with my parents most of the pandemic period,
Yeah.
the peak of the pandemic. And then often in the summer when my daughter's away, I spent a lot of time with them. And, you know, I heard my dad say, I fell. And I was like so worried, like, where's his voice coming from? What happened to him? What
Yeah.
could have happened to him? And we were so lucky he fell into the pool because he likes to clean the pool. That's his hobby. He loves to
Yeah.
do it. And nobody wants to take it away from him, nor does he want to stop doing it. But like, how lucky were we that he fell into the water,
Right.
right? The
Instead of
water
concrete.
protected
Yeah.
him. And the ankle that he hurt, which we learned at the ER after he did it, was the one that he broke years ago that was already surgically reinforced. So we were
Yeah.
very lucky to have, you know, the best of all situations where he didn't break anything new and the water prevented him from really hurting himself terribly.
Yeah.
And so that was just luck, right? You can't live on luck alone. You've got to be, and we were lucky we were home, right? To help him. So to me, it's all about preventative, and to have family members and community members to look out for you is the bonus, and to prevent these issues and challenges from happening or minimize them is really what we focus on.
Yeah. Are you doing anything with swimming? Have you thought about how to do
Uh,
that?
You know, we have a few members, I never forget it, during the pandemic that lived in the hot places like Arizona. And I
Mhm.
remember they would do some of our classes like in the water in their pools. It was so
Yeah.
enviable. I loved it. It was like, oh, this is so beautiful. I mean, I know the therapeutic benefits of swimming. I swim myself.
Mhm.
But on the other hand, like, it is harder to do virtually. And
Yeah.
until, you know, we form these partnerships throughout the country, it's hard to provide places, no less pools, for people to do what we do.
Yeah.
So, but pool, so therapeutic and delightful. You know, it's interesting. Some of our most popular classes are strengthening classes, like whether it be physical therapy or barefoot therapy. There's a
Yeah.
tremendous desire to build strength. And with swimming, you build phenomenal strength and cardiovascularly at the same time.
Yeah. I always think of, you know, there's all these groups, and when you're in the pool and you're looking at these swimming classes, there's like a master 70 plus and a master 60 plus, and
Yeah.
they're
Exactly.
lapping me as I.
Oh yeah, and sometimes you don't even know how old people are when you're in the pool because like we're all wearing caps and going pretty fast. And then you get out, you're like, oh my goodness, like look who I was just swimming with. And I was like
Yeah.
very tired trying to do it and keep up. Yeah, I love to swim. I have the benefit of spending time, as I said, with my parents over the summer, and they have a beautiful pool that I grew up with. And so I said to my mom, I can't remember how many hundreds of thousands of times I've gone back and forth in this pool. And it always feels so delightful to me. And now
Yeah.
I'm lucky my daughter gets to do it with my mom. So to have that intergenerational
Yeah.
piece.
That's
So
really good.
my mom's like does her laps, right? And then plays with my daughter, and she'll be in the pool all day. It's so refreshing, and nothing is more rewarding than being with her grandkids. So it's
Yeah.
like a win-win. Stay cool, stay connected.
That's really good. Yeah. Swimming was hit really hard during the pandemic because it was so facility specific.
Right.
And there were a lot of communities where there were people looking for pools and they
Right.
couldn't find them. And I remember, like, so we moved upstate during part of the pandemic, and there's no pools up here. I used to swim
All
in
right.
at one of the Ys in one of
Yeah.
the like city pools, and then yeah, now there's nothing. um,
Really interesting.
and so that, yeah, there was a lot of like, yeah, where do I find a pool? What's open? Where can I go? Like, what parks allowed in the lake? And
Or the lakes, right? There's a
yeah,
lot of swimming in the lakes, but that's harder to do, right? I see these people like tie some sort of flotation device, you know, on their leg, right? So you can see
yeah,
that there's like someone swimming, God forbid something happens, you know, you're no that person might have been alone, but they'll be seen and heard,
Yeah, yeah. So that one I always think about because it's low impact, it's great for
Yeah.
the body. Um, and I'm sure that there's like other things like that too. So
Yeah. I mean,
yeah,
what we do in our programming, and we try to mix it up, right? To have strengthening and cardio. A big part of also what makes our program successful, you've mentioned it before, we have an enrichment vertical, right? We do fitness, wellness, and enrichment. And that's something I change every month. So
hmm
it's a month-long series. And as an example, like we've done distinguished authors where we'll have authors that come in. It's generally on Sundays that we do it at 7 p.m. And we just had Buddy Pogabrin. She was the founding editor of Ms. Magazine, and she herself is the age of the generation we serve. And to hear the most extraordinary woman who was instrumental in the women's movement in the 70s and 80s, still writing, so prolific,
hmm
reflecting on her story and her memoir is really powerful, right? To people think about their own stories.
yeah,
So we did that, and then we had a whole wonderful, beautiful series that we did on like find the treasure in your homes. And we had the gentleman, a father and son team from the Antique Roadshow,
nice. Yeah,
and our members just loved it. So they got to submit items, right? And our experts went on and they picked one item, and live on our Vitality Society programming, they went through, the father and son team went through each of the person, one item per person who submitted. And to hear, like, we thought people might have had hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of valuables that they were sharing. It's just a few $100s, but no, priceless in terms of the sentimental value, but like the commercial value. And so that was really interesting to have people dig through their homes and their treasures and try to understand what they're worth, and learning really how value is seen and understood in the area of like collectibles and
yeah,
artifacts. And it was super interesting.
yeah. So we have a house that was built in 1920s, and
Oh,
we're finding stuff now all the time as we go through and open up the attic. And
I can
um,
imagine.
there was like a glassware collection that had been walled in. It's like,
Oh,
okay,
wow.
what
Well,
was this? Yeah.
that must have
So
been something special.
so I think it was like golf cups or something like that. So I don't know if it's I don't know if it's special, but yeah, it's fascinating what's
It
there.
was hidden to someone, right? Someone
Yeah.
was supposed to. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. We try, we have plant-based cooking, and we have a woman who is like the foremost expert on plant-based cooking, and she's always inspiring us and encouraging us to try these new novel ingredients. And that was like super interesting. So the other day I went to the store, and you see like a wall full of sugar alternatives, and
Yeah.
here's monk fruit. And like, not only do I know what monk fruit is, and now our members know what monk fruit is, but like how
Yeah.
you use it, what's it good for, like, and this idea of really expanding people's social circle. And I think
Yeah.
back when I started working with older people in high school, that's how I started. I cooked for my grandparents. They loved it. And I started cooking for the people in my community and introducing them to these novel ingredients. At the time was like oat bran, right? And, at the
Yeah.
time that was interesting. And now, I mean, that's like everybody knows those ingredients. So like, what's next? That's what
Yeah.
our members want to know. They want to be on the leading and cutting edge when it comes to their health and well-being, and the
Yep.
nutritional classes and the plant-based cooking classes help them stay there.
You should try jackfruit and make shredded pork out of it because
Jackfruit,
the
it's funny,
texture is exactly the same and it's
but the
amazing.
smell is
Yeah.
awful. That's my problem. Between my husband buys a dog food for my
Yeah.
puppy, and
Yeah.
between that smell and jackfruit, I better get back to work. It's just too much.
Yeah. Yeah. So we during the pandemic we lived with my wife's family, with her mother and father, and my son is 4. At the time he was 2, and my mom's dad is a chef, so he would be cooking for the family basically constantly all day, and my son would stand and watch him over the chair and like look at the stove, and then he started cooking. And so my son now, at 4, is a better chef than I am. But it was a lot of that, like, what are these ingredients, why is he doing this, like, how come, and what's the order you cook things in. And
I love
so it was
that.
really fascinating and
I love
pretty
that.
amazing. So
Well, my daughter had a different experience because my dad makes ravioli every single
mm,
day.
Yeah.
And so they had lunch together. It was so beautiful. They'd watch Deal or No Deal. My dad would eat his daily ravioli, and my husband and I ensured that my daughter had something a little bit more nutritious, every single day. And it's just so wonderful to hear them talking about the odds of certain suitcases having a certain amount of money, and my father is an
Yeah.
accountant teaching my daughter about calculation of odds and why the banker's offer was what it was. I mean, it's priceless to have these relationships. I mean, we
Yeah.
all have beautiful memories. Hopefully, many of us do, of our grandparents that we still remember. And, there was no substitute for that. In many ways, it was a very difficult time, but I attribute, my living with my parents to being able to
Yeah.
really pour my heart and soul into this business, because I knew that I had them in my life, in my corner, to help me take care of my daughter who was 9. And so I could work very late. And I remember my dad coming into the office, because he watched TV often till later at night, and he'd come in just to make sure I turned the lights off, right? Like, that's first and foremost what he wanted to make sure I didn't forget to turn off the lights. And he would say to me, he's like, "Is this going to work? Are you sure this is going to work?" And I'm like, "Dad, you were an entrepreneur, right? It's a leap of faith. You work your, tail
Yeah.
off and you hope it does. But, it's tremendous risk, and you've got to believe." And we believe, because the impact
Yeah.
we have, propels me forward. And I'm just so excited to do what we've done at scale, because we really can improve and
Yeah.
help so many.
So Scott Adams has a book about life, basically. I think it's called like How to Fail at Everything and Still Succeed, something like that.
Ah,
And in it, he's a serial entrepreneur, and he was writing about like, why is it sometimes worth chewing through walls as an entrepreneur, and other times it's not, and how do you know when you start if it's worth it? And so what he said was that if you have a project that shows early signs of success, it's almost always worth chewing through walls. And if you are struggling at the beginning to have any success, no matter how good your idea is, it will likely not be worth it. And I thought that was a really good rubric. Like, you're helping a community, and it doesn't matter how small it is, but you're helping them in like a fundamental way. It's worth chewing through the walls.
absolutely.
And if you're not, if they're not getting a benefit out of it, maybe try something else. Yeah. So here
Yeah.
it's really great to see like the impact you're having.
Yeah, that's what propels me forward. I mean, it's interesting. I mean, I grew up with a father, like I said, who had his own company, and I saw how difficult it was for him from a very young age to really have hustle, right, Rob? To like go out there, believe in yourself, try to get other people to believe in you. And, I feel very blessed that, we have a few thousand members to the community, and we have a percentage of them that are paid subscribers. And I've gotten to know so many of them so well, and to hear from them and often their families how much we've improved those lives that we've served just makes me believe, like, we've got a formula, we've got an approach, and it works, right? People are feeling better mentally, physically. Let's just scale it. And at the end of the day, having worked for many companies considerably larger than the one I'm working for at the moment, we on like billions of dollars of revenue and hundreds of millions, of other metrics. It really, sometimes you lose the impact because you take on the scale so soon, right? You do
Yeah.
things for so many so fast, but you don't necessarily do it so well. And for me, I wanted to do it so well, and then we'll do fast and big.
Hmm. I like
Can't
that
ever,
way of thinking about it. Yeah.
yeah, because when it comes to older people, having worked in this industry and senior housing for so long, money alone is not the answer, right? It's really understanding what people need and want,
Yeah.
and then apply and contribute the money to that delivery.
Yeah. That's for sure. And it's sort of like what you were talking about connection, right? Like, the money doesn't buy you happiness, health, or vitality.
That's right. That's right.
Um,
And
it,
I always say we need a village, right? I posted on my LinkedIn yesterday. It was like, I've built a village for our members. Like, as an entrepreneur, we need to do this in a village form ourselves, right? There has to be a community of leaders. None of us can solve social isolation and the scale of this generation needs and wants alone, right? We've got to do it with partners. And we have several, but one of them that I love is the Village to Village movement. They have village chapters all over the country, and it's really about aligning with what we do and what we think a lot about, just keeping people independent and well at home. And the idea of kind of mobilizing your neighbors and those that could be your friends to kind of look out for you and help you is beautiful, and it's supplemental to what we do. It complements everything we believe in, and so those types of organizations, I'm doing a program for them on Thursday this week. But those kinds of organizations, like, we're beautifully aligned with, and we love being part of a village with these leaders as well.
Yeah, that's a great place to kind of start wrapping it up. That's a good thought to start winding down on. Do you have any final thoughts you want to share with the audience at all?
I just want to say, well, first of all, I love what you do. Thank you so much for inviting me to be here. And, I really believe that as a nation, we're at a vital point, right? That we really need to begin to think about our elders in different and better ways, right? It's really vitally important that we do everything we can to keep this older generation well. Like, how can we help them extend not just the length of their lives, but improve the quality of their lives? And whether it be a platform like ours or a community center in a neighborhood of your elder, whatever it is to find those connections and meaningful touch points so that people really feel and can remain their best. And so that's what we try to do. And if we could ever be supportive to what organizations others lead or family situations that people are dealing with, I'm often the person that people go to, and the stories get crazier and crazier, but there is no easy caregiving situation. And the longer we can keep people well and work together to so they can remain that way, the better we all are. So I look forward to future collaborations, and thank you, Rob, for illuminating what we do and where we're headed.
Yeah, thank you. And I want to append to that there's also this, there's a wealth of knowledge that we're standing to lose. And it's like a critical moment to capture it. So most of the foundation of what we're living in right now in the digital world was built by people who are starting to pass away. And we're losing so much.
Right.
So that's like another key part is like, if you lose a Grace Hopper, you might not understand how things were designed or why we code the way we do or why Zoom works.
Right.
So yeah, like that's like another important part of it too.
Yeah, it's interesting. I will also say, like, we just went to Salt Lake City and we went to the genealogy museum that is led by the Mormon community. And like, my husband and I were so fascinated to connect and see like our relatives and who are their parents and what are the records that exist on them. And then, the other piece of this is like, how do you excite the youngest generation? So my daughter was so excited to put on the family tree, like all these different extensions, and learn about people she never knew and are obviously never going to meet. And to preserve those stories is beautiful. So I just want to say thank you. I got to run on one of our classes, but thank you again. And you could reach us. It's right there, vitality-society.com. When you do look at what we do, we give our new members, those that want to subscribe, a free 2 weeks. So you get to see and enjoy everything we do. And we'd love to have you and get to know you. Thank you,
All right.
Rob.
Well, thank you so much. And
Okay. Bye-bye.
bye.